In today's video, I am going to be breaking down different basketball IQ basketball drills that you can use with your team to make your team super smart. Let's get down and let's check these out. Really quickly, some of these drills will work extremely well with the 5-out offense, so make sure to go check out my complete guide to the 5-out offense down in the description below. So we're going to start with 3 different lines. We're going to have a defense line, we're going to have an offense line, and an offense line, plus, of course, ourselves, the coach. So to start, we're going to have player 5. He's going to be passing the ball to the coach. This is going to be the defender. He's going to go and set a screen for that defender. At this time, what we want to see happen is player 4 to pop to the wing, and player 5, when he's setting this screen, to do one of 2 things. If player 4 is trying to fight over top of that screen, then at that time, we just want player 5 to normally roll towards the basket. The coach will then decide who to pass to, player 4 or player 5, and it depends on which one is more widely open. However, if player 5 sets that screen and player 4 tries to go underneath that screen, then what we want to see happen is player 4, instead of popping all the way to the elbow, we want to see him just pop quickly out to here, earlier than where he normally would be, and player 5 to roll towards the basket, but also seal that defender at the same time to force a switch. So when he sets that screen, when he rolls, we want to see him roll so that his back now is towards that player, so that now when player 4 pops, he's going to be absolutely wide open for that 3-point shot. We also want to teach our players how to use a screen if the defender is trying to cut off that screen from working. What I mean by that is when player 5 sets that screen, if player 4 is already trying to cheat to stop player 4 from being open at all, or even stop him from being able to use the screen, then player 4 can then cut towards the basket himself, and player 5 would be the one who is then popping towards the 3. When this happens, we would really want to try and hit player 4 up with that pass, because this will be a wide open layup. So those are the 3 options that we would be running with this screen. Now, when we are looking at that defender, we could even throw another coach in there and just have 2 offensive lines, so that then we can really control what that defender is going to do. But then at the same time, we really want to see what our players are going to do on the defensive side, so that they know not to make those mistakes in game. But also, for the offensive players, we are really trying to teach them how to use these off-ball screens along the baseline. You could even set up instead having a line for the passer and then have the coach as the defender, so that now when this pass goes from 5 blue to 5 red and he sets that screen, if the coach tries to cut off and negate that screen, player 4 would then be hopefully smart enough to be able to cut back door for that layup. That's what we are essentially trying to do, and I would eventually add the line here instead of having the coach do the pass. You can mix this up any which way that you would like. We can do the same exact drill at the point, where we would have player 5 pass over to player 3 blue, and player 5 would then set that screen for player 1. However, this is going to be a little bit more information for our players, because it's going to change just a bit. So for example, if player 1 uses that screen and the coach tries to fight over top of that screen, we would want player 1 to cut towards the basket. This is how you use a screen, because then when you cut to the basket quickly, that player is stuck behind you. However, instead, let's say we have the coach after that pass, let's say we have that coach trying to fight underneath that screen. Well, instead of trying to cut towards the basket, because then the coach is already going to be there to cut it off, what we would want to see happen instead is for player 1 to use that screen and then pop back out, where he can receive that pass for a 3-point shot. These are the 2 different options with a screen. There's also a third. We can have player 5 again pass away, when he sets this screen, if, for example, the coach tries to cut off that screen from happening, almost like trying to cheat over top, we would then want player 1 to be smart enough to cut to the basket so that now that's just a quick layup here. And if you're running like a 5-out offense or an offense that has a ton of screening involved, this is definitely the types of drills that you would be looking or wanting to use, because it can teach your team what to look for as a passer, what to do as a screener, but also what to do as the player who is getting screened, so that now when I'm getting a screen in a game as a player, we can then say, oh, that player is doing this, I need to do that. I really like to explain to my players, because kids these days, they're learning how to code video games and stuff in school. I always like to explain to them in a coding context, which is if this, then that. There's a type of coding style where if, let's say, your character in the game does this, then the game does that. It's called if this, then that. And it's the same idea in basketball when it comes to the defenders. If they do this, we need to do that. And that is the best way I like to explain to my players, because all these kids are learning video games and how to code them these days anyways. Maybe I'll hire one of these kids who I coach one day to make an app for me. Anyways, let's get back down to the plays. Okay, so now we have 2 lines. We have a defensive line and an offensive line. And then we'll have the coach. Again, we're using the screens just because it is so useful. However, here we're going to have player 1 and blue, both player 1 dribbling towards the screener, which is the coach, as well as the defender trying to play defense on him. The coach is going to set that screen, and of course, player 1 is going to be using that screen. When player 1 uses that screen, if player 1 red goes over top, player 1 needs to attack right away to the basket. If player 1 red goes underneath that screen, player 1 can pull for a 3, or he can use the coach as a rescreen, dribble back towards the left side, and take that 3. If, however, let's say that defender is really quick and he tries to jam the screen or tries to cut off the screen, basically beating you to the screen so that he can get over top or so that he can basically stop you from using the screen, player 1 needs to cut back towards the basket. At this time, we would want the coach to pop out towards this opposite side, because if player 1 was fast enough to cut him off, then player 1 blue could just kick it out for the coach, where if the coach felt like shooting, he could obviously shoot, but at the same time, you could just run the drill over again with the next set of players. Personally, however, I would take that 3. This next drill is actually a lot of fun. I do it a lot with my teams that I coach. The blue line, or the blue team, is going to be running in this direction. The red team is going to be running in the opposite direction. And then the coach is going to go and take a 3-point shot. Whether he makes it or misses it, they still need to get that rebound, and they're going to be boxing out each other trying to get that board. Let's say, for example, player 4 blue gets that ball. We would then be looking to have player 1 and 5. They're going to be the outlet passes, and player 2 and 3 blue are going to be running down court. Player 4 is not going to be dribbling right away. That is number 1. We do not want the rebounder dribbling right away. We want him turning around and looking down court. Either looking for players 2 or 3 way down court, or ideally players 1 and 5 in this case, because now we can get that outlet pass to player 1, and then player 1 may have a better angle at trying to pass to players 3 or 2 way down court. Meanwhile, the red team is trying to sprint back on defense. And then how we would run it on the opposite side of the court is, if we don't get a fast break basket, we want to set up our offense and run through our offense and our defense through one possession, only one shot. That way, we can continue it going. I actually coach 2 teams and we practice both at the same time, so I try to get stuff through as quick as possible that way so that we can keep the guys running. We don't want to have the player sitting on the sidelines for more than a minute or 2. We want to have them continuously run through. Obviously, it helps our cardio, but at the same time, it just gets them to be less bored. Anyways, I hope that you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys again next time.